Tonight on First at 9, 31st of October 2024. Chinese funding. China to evaluate new Sri Lankan government's development needs.
The Chinese government will continue deepen human resources cooperation with Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka eager for China to recommence funding for priority projects.
Sri Lanka hopes that the debt treatment chapter will soon be closed.
Exiting default. Sri Lanka aims to conclude debt restructuring and exit default status by year-end, affirms CBSL chief. Destination Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka urgently requires professionals with international affiliations to manage the destination's global image, emphasizes corporate leader and tourism industry stakeholder.
We had a good PR company. They could have really...
Arrested. Former State Minister Lohan Ratwatte arrested.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go. කන්ට පරිස්සම් කරගත්තොත් අපි පරිස්සම්.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Sri Lanka's premier primetime English news bulletin, Derana First at 9. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and from around the world. Diwali, the Hindu celebration which symbolizes the spiritual victory of light over darkness and good over evil, is celebrated today among the Hindu communities around the world. The Sri Lankan Hindu community celebrated the festival today by engaging in religious activities and illuminating their homes with lights. Diwali, also known as Deepavali, is the festival of lights which is celebrated by Hindu communities around the world. The celebration symbolizes the spiritual victory of Dharma over Adharma, light over darkness, good over evil and knowledge over ignorance. During this festival, people decorate their homes with lights, lamps, diyas, flowers, colourful rangoli and candles. Diwali is traditionally observed between the months of October and November, and this year's festival falls on the 31st of October. Today, Hindu devotees across Sri Lanka celebrated the festival by lighting oil lamps and joining Deva Pujas. The Ministry of Education has declared tomorrow a school holiday for Tamil medium schools in the central, Uva, southern and Sabaragamu provinces in view of the Diwali festival. Meanwhile, President Anuradha Dissanayake conveyed his wishes for the country's Hindu community, stating that the festival exemplifies hope and triumph of good over evil, bringing communities together in a spirit of unity and celebration. The head of state highlighted that Sri Lankans have been on a similar journey of hope since independence and that new hope is emerging while the people's suppressed aspirations are coming to the forefront. Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya also issued a statement for Diwali, wishing that the light of the festival not only illuminates one's home but also sparks a deeper sense of justice, compassion and solidarity in everyone's hearts.
Horizon Campus 2024 Intake 2. Register now.
Union Assurance.
Welcome to Cinnamon Life, South Asia's biggest entertainment hub, where awe awaits.
Sadaharita Plantations Limited, celebrating 22 years of your trust.
The Chinese government announced 400 million rupees worth of emergency humanitarian materials for flood relief efforts in Sri Lanka. The aid support was announced during a meeting between Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya and Chinese Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Chi Zhenhong. This is in addition to 30 million rupees in emergency assistance for flood relief extended to Sri Lanka recently.
Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka Chi Zhenhong called on Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya yesterday, during which he conveyed the Chinese government's commitment to strengthening the long-standing partnership between the two countries. Chinese support for flood relief efforts in Sri Lanka were also discussed. The embassy stated that the Chinese government decided to provide a batch of emergency humanitarian materials worth 400 million rupees to Sri Lanka. The aid was announced in addition to a recent emergency assistance of 30 million rupees in cash handed over to the Sri Lankan president for flood relief efforts. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister also met with the Italian ambassador to Sri Lanka, Damiano Francovi, yesterday, where both parties discussed key areas for enhanced collaboration, including skilled foreign employment opportunities for Sri Lankans. Both parties discussed the role of supportive policies to attract tourists and investors. In the meantime, Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya also held discussions with the Country Director of International Labour Organization Johnny Simpson today, focusing on advanced labour standards, women empowerment and social dialogue. The ILO Country Director and the Sri Lankan Premier discussed the critical need to review labour laws to better protect vulnerable groups, especially women, and the necessity of addressing the gender pay gap and creating quality job opportunities for women.
Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Chi Zhenhong, says China will evaluate the new Sri Lankan government's development needs next year. Addressing an event organized by the China International Development Cooperation Agency, the Chinese ambassador highlighted that the evaluation will enable China to enhance the effectiveness of training programs it offers for Sri Lankan participants. Meanwhile, Finance Secretary Mahinda Siriwardena expressed Sri Lanka's hope of promptly concluding debt treatment negotiations with the China Development Bank, paving the way for the resumption of Chinese financing for future projects. A reception for the alumni of the China International Development Cooperation Agency's training program was held last evening in Colombo with the participation of Chinese Ambassador to Sri Lanka Chi Zhenhong and Finance Secretary Mahinda Siriwardena.
China has played a pivotal role in supporting Sri Lanka's debt treatment efforts. Exactly a year ago, in October 2023, China was the first among the official sector creditors to announce an agreement in principle on the key financial terms for the treatment of debts owed by Sri Lanka to the Exim Bank of China. Following discussions, the two sides reached a final agreement on debt treatment terms in June 2024. Following the agreement coming into force, Exim Bank of China became the first external lender to conclude the debt treatment process. Excellent progress has also been made on the debt treatment related to China Development Bank. We are now in the final stages of finalizing comparability of treatment matters for CDP related to OCC. Sri Lanka hopes that the debt treatment chapter will soon be closed and we can resume a robust financial relationship, including fresh financing for high quality priority projects going forward.
The Chinese government attaches great importance to all-round educational cooperation with Sri Lanka. Over the years, it has used foreign aid funds to hold various training programs in China. By end of October this year, more than 1,000 Sri Lanka participants went to China for training, and the training topics cover 17 major areas. The Chinese government will continue to deepen human resources cooperation with developing countries to stay committed to encouraging the development and the revitalization of the global south. In the next year, the Chinese government will fully consider the development needs of the new Sri Lanka government, improve the pertinence and effectiveness of training programs, and welcome more participants to visit and study in China.
Fast track your career from O-levels with eSoft.
After O-levels, start your Australian university degree in just 8 months with ACBT's Foundation Program. Enrollments close on 21st October. Call 071 115 1234 for Colombo or 077 011 3223 for Kandy.
Diabetol, සීනිවලින් පරිස්සම්වන ඔබට අමතක නොවන පෝෂණය.
Meanwhile, US Ambassador Julie Chung says if the new government can strengthen the investment climate, implement anti-corruption measures and enhance business-friendly governance, there is potential for more US-based manufacturers to invest in Sri Lanka. Addressing the inauguration ceremony of a new investment by a US-based firm, which is relocating its operations from China to Sri Lanka, Ambassador Chung expressed her expectation for increased bilateral trade between Sri Lanka and the United States, highlighting the growing interest of US companies in investing in Sri Lanka. American engineering technology group Transdime has invested $8.5 million in Sri Lanka in a joint venture with locally operating AmSafe Birdport to provide engineering solutions for global aviation services. The new investment saw the launch of a new factory of AmSafe subsidiary Shield in the island nation's western investment zone of Vatupitivala. With the new investment, Shield has shifted to Sri Lanka from China.
Shield's decision to establish a manufacturing here in Sri Lanka, to move it from China to Sri Lanka, is a testament to the growing interest of U.S. investment here. The United States is already the largest export market for Sri Lanka, and it's wonderful to see greater U.S. investment directly coming here. We need to have more bilateral, both ways, trade and investment between our countries. I'm very excited about seeing more of that trend. And manufacturing moves like this one, driven by customer demand to diversify supply chains, they represent a great opportunity for Sri Lanka. If the new government can continue to strengthen the investment climate, strengthen implementation of anti-corruption measures, and address transparency, this could even be a greater potential for more companies to come, manufacture and invest right here in Sri Lanka.
There are additional investments from other group companies who have operations in China. We expect those businesses to be relocated as well, which will help us advance investments in the country successfully. We also plan to create more investment zones, and this investment will support that initiative.
This is a 100% US-owned company. The facility will produce restraints primarily used in ground transportation, such as those utilized by vehicles in amusement parks. The reason for this relocation is that China has increased export taxes on companies operating there. As a result, more companies have begun to exit the competitive environment. Our plan is to complete construction within 9 months and start production by this time in 2025. This represents an investment of $8.5 million US. We anticipate approximately 500 direct employment opportunities along with many indirect job opportunities as well.
Chairperson and Managing Director of Jetwing Travels, Shiromal Kure, emphasised the need for cohesive efforts to promote Sri Lanka as a high-end tourist destination, aiming to increase foreign revenue from the industry. Joining our current affairs programme at Hyde Park with Indivariya Muwatta, Kure stated that the tourism sector is one of the fastest routes for the country to generate foreign exchange, but Sri Lanka has yet to realise its full potential. She also highlighted the necessity for Sri Lanka to engage a public relations management agency with foreign affiliations to enhance the country's positioning in the international market and to effectively address any information that could impact the tourism sector.
Why Sri Lanka should be positioned as a high-end tourist market and attract more high spenders. How would you strike a balance here? It doesn't matter the number of tourists that come. What we need is foreign currency, right? This country needs it desperately, and tourism is an amazing way. It's a very quick fire thing. Everybody says it's a low-hanging fruit, but we don't seem to be able to pluck the fruit. If you take an airline, they will always advertise their business class or the first class. They may have only a fewer seats, but they advertise the best. But that doesn't mean the back end doesn't get filled up. Similarly, we have such a beautiful country. There's so much to talk about. So why not talk about all of that? And we have also some good products.
If we are to attract high-end tourists or position Sri Lanka for that market, do you think we have the infrastructure, the facilities necessary to cater to that demanding market segment?
100% ready, but thing is we will never be ready in that sense. So, and these are not big things that need to be done. We can't say we don't have it and not advertise and get them to come, because these are things that can be done quickly. Every time we kind of get our act together, something happens. We've gone over the 30 years, we've had so many things happening. The fact that we are still alive and tourism industry is thriving is a huge testament to the people in the industry. All we need is a cohesive activity to position, market the country, because we don't have a good PR agency. There's a lot of things that are falling aside around. But if we had a good PR company, they could have really arrested all these.
Do you think we should hire a company overseas to take care of these matters?
It can be a local company with foreign affiliations, because you can't do everything being here. We have just come that much closer to appointing a company. But unfortunately, the final thing didn't happen. But the foreign companies were asked because they are the the ones who have the reach to be able to go out and do all this.
Centering Arugambe. Word travels fast. Media talks about it. They pick on this and talk about it.
So, which is why we need a good PR agency who can counter these kind of negative sentiments, and we don't have, unfortunately. But I think in this particular instance, we jumped the gun, because when a country advises its citizens of whether that is right or wrong, I'm not each High Commissioner or Ambassador knows what they should be doing or not doing. Because if, for example, as I said before, there's a threat in the UK for Sri Lankans, the UK press is not going to talk about it. But we were aware, so our government did inform us. I think that's what a responsible government should do. We're a little fry in this whole thing. So there are certain things which we have to put up with, and we went through a lot of this. So we could have downplayed it. There was no need for us to talk about it. We've had cancellations as well. Sadly, our Sri Lankan people stopped going to Arugambe. So I think we sometimes take these things out of proportion.
Sri Lanka decides 2024.
Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya assures former President Ranil Wickremesinghe will be summoned to provide evidence regarding the central bank bond scam in 2015. Addressing a public meeting of the National People's Power, the Premier went on to say that the NPP government would initiate legal action against every person who misappropriated public funds. A public meeting of the National People's Power aimed at the 2024 parliamentary election was held last evening in Bokundara under the patronage of Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya.
Ranil Wickremesinghe කියලා තියෙනවා ව්‍යවස්ථාව ගැන හරිනි දන්නේ ඒ නිසා ව්‍යවස්ථාව ගැන දැනගන්න ඕන නම් එයා කියලා දෙන්නම් කියලා.
Ranil Wickremesinghe has claimed that I am not well versed in the constitution and offered to teach me about it. Should I attend his lessons? He was rejected by the people 17 times, yet he refuses to give up. One of the major tenets of the constitution is the sovereignty of the people. It is clear that Ranil Wickremesinghe has failed to grasp this concept. If he did, he would not have postponed elections, refused to abide by the decisions of the Constitutional Council, and threatened its members or influenced the judiciary to obtain favourable rulings. He should first understand these basic concepts before teaching me about the Constitution. Therefore, we request Ranil Wickremesinghe to focus on his own affairs. The people have granted us a mandate, and we are executing our duties in accordance with that mandate. Under no circumstances would we seek advice from Ranil Wickremesinghe. We do not require the advice of those who scam the central bank. Definitely, legal action will be taken not only against those implicated in the central bank bond scam, but also against every person who misappropriated public funds.
Former President Ranil Wickremesinghe is of the view that protecting the parliament has to be the prime objective of his group, the New Democratic Front, in the upcoming parliamentary election. Addressing a gathering in Dambulla, the former president questioned how a government with only a minority in parliament can abolish the privileges of parliamentarians and former presidents. A public meeting of the New Democratic Front aimed at the 2024 parliamentary election was held in Dambulla last evening under the patronage of its leader, former President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Protecting the parliament has to be the prime objective of this parliamentary election. President Anura Dissanayake urges the public to provide his party with complete power within parliament. I do not understand how can a person who only claimed 42% of the votes seek the complete power of parliament. I do not know from where he learned mathematics. Back then, some communist parties held elections under single party system. We cannot adopt such a model. He said that parliament is full of theft. It is not. There are people who have committed offences. He said that privileges are not necessary. Which country has adopted such a practice? Parliamentarians are entitled to a wage. It is provided to parliamentarians in each and every country. It has to be provided. He cannot take decisions like this. Their government only possesses a minor power. His power is similar to what I had. Neither he nor I can say that we will abolish these privileges. The government said that they will reclaim the residencies granted to former presidents. This will not affect me because I do not live in a state-owned residence. Why are they trying to evict former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga from her official residence? Please give that house to her. Her husband was murdered by the JVP. If former President Mahinda Rajapaksa needs security since he ended the war, please consider that. People may blame him now. That is a different story. If there is a security issue, we have to take appropriate measures.
Meanwhile, Samagi Jana Balawege leader Sajith Premadasa assures that his party will form a government of the people by securing a parliamentary majority during the upcoming general election. Addressing a gathering, Premadasa urged the incumbent government not to deceive the people. A public gathering organised by the Samagi Jana Balawege was held in the Colombo Central Electorate under the patronage of party leader Sajith Premadasa.
We urge President Anura Dissanayake and his government to reduce the electricity tariff by 66% as promised. Please increase the salaries of state sector employees every 6 months as promised. We urge them to reduce the prices of goods and eliminate the queues for passports. Do not represent a government that fails to fulfill its promises. Do not represent a government that deceives people. However, we are confident that we will be able to form the government of the people by securing a majority in the parliament during the upcoming general election.
Sarva Jana Bale leader Dilip Jayavir says incumbent President Anura Dissanayake will join history as the leader of a government that borrowed the highest number of loans within the shortest period of time. Addressing an event in Vattala, Jayavir criticised the government, citing their lack of knowledge on money printing.
A meeting of Sarva Jana Bale in the Vattala electorate was held under the patronage of the Alliance's leader Dilip Jayavir.
ක්‍රමානුකූලව සර්ව ජන බලය කියන දේශපාලන බලවේගය අපේ රටේ අතු ඉති වැඩිලා මහා වෘක්ෂයක් බවට පත් වෙමින් තියෙනවා. පොහොට්ටුවේ හිටිය ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ හිටිය සමගි ජන බලවේගයේ හිටිය ඒ විතරක් නෙමෙයි ගිය පාර ඡන්දෙදී අනුරු කුමාරට ඡන්දෙ දීපු අයත් හිමීට මේ පැත්තට දැන් කිට්ටු වේගෙන යන්නේ. දැන් අපේ ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඔවුන් ඉතිහාසගත වෙනවා.
The incumbent president joined history as the leader of a government that borrowed the highest number of loans within the shortest period of time. All of you have seen the news on social media pertaining to money printing. Minister Vijitha Herath said that if money was printed, the notes should possess the signature of the new Minister of Finance. The incumbent Minister of Finance is Anura Dissanayake. He challenged us to show a single note with his signature. Both Minister Herath and I were contemporaries when we were pursuing higher education. He was a student of the University of California. He became a disgrace to that university. It is reasonable to say that the people of this country do not know what money printing is. However, how can we justify the fact that a graduate and a parliamentarian with over 25 years of experience believes that money printing is printing notes of currency? Money printing is a policy decision made by the central bank from time to time in order to expand or contract money supply in the market. If he does not know what money printing is, he can search it on Google.
දන්නේ නැත්නම් money printing කියන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා. ඕක Google කරලා බලන්න.
Sri Lanka decides 2024.
Former State Minister Lohan Ratwate was arrested by the Mirihana police today over the alleged possession of an illegally imported luxury vehicle. Subsequently, the former State Minister was placed under remand custody until the 7th of November. Mirihana police uncovered the vehicle on the 26th of this month, parked at a house belonging to former State Minister Ratwate's wife in the Ambuldene area in Mirihana. It did not possess a vehicle registration plate at the time. It was later revealed that the former State Minister's private secretary had brought the car to the location 3 weeks before. The same individual was found dead at former State Minister Ratwate's office on the 20th of October with a gunshot wound. Upon investigation, the Government Analysts Department discovered that the parts of the luxury vehicle in question had been illegally imported in 3 separate batches and later assembled in Sri Lanka. Investigations further revealed that former State Minister Ratwate had used the vehicle. Later, the arrested former State Minister was produced before the Nugegoda acting magistrate this evening. The acting magistrate ordered the suspect to be remanded until the 7th of November. Welcome back. Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Wickremesinghe says the government aims to conclude the debt restructuring process by year-end with expectations for a prompt exit from the default rating category soon after. During an interview with Economy Next in Washington, D.C. this week, the CBSL chief said to complete the process, certain procedures must be followed, including documentations, due diligence and related formalities. He noted that it will take 2 to 3 weeks to complete the debt exchange and obtain investor participation, and added that the intention is to complete the process before the end of December. Dr. Wickremesinghe also expressed confidence that Sri Lanka's default rating would see an upgrade shortly after the debt restructuring process is finalized. He stated that once Sri Lanka starts to repay its obligations, the island nation will emerge from the selective default or restrictive default categories. Further, the central bank governor stated that Sri Lanka will start with a normal CCC rating or, depending on the outlook, will get a better rating, and added that the immediate action would be to remove Sri Lanka from the default category. The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation revised fuel prices effective from midnight tonight. Accordingly, the price of 95-octane petrol has been reduced by 6 rupees to 371 rupees per litre, while super diesel has also been reduced by 6 rupees to 313 rupees per litre. The prices of 92-octane petrol, auto diesel and kerosene will remain unchanged. Meanwhile, Lanka IOC and Sinopec have also revised their fuel prices in line with the CPC's prices. Enter Air, Poland's largest private airline, commenced a new series of charter connections between Poland and Sri Lanka. The Polish private airline's maiden charter flight touched down yesterday at the Bandaranaike International Airport. The Warsaw-Colombo route will operate regularly until the end of March next year. The new route is expected to enhance travel and tourism links between the two nations. And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining and have a good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit adaderana.lk.